4 years ago, Vladimir Putin sent tanks into Ukraine expecting Kyiv to fall in 3 days. Instead, he got the longest war of his life, a war that has now killed or wounded over 1 million Russian soldiers, cratered the Russian economy, turned NATO from a dying alliance into a rearming juggernaut, and forced Putin himself to spend most of his time in an underground bunker in Krasnodar Krai, afraid of Ukrainian drone strikes on Moscow. This is not how the story was supposed to go. And yet Putin is still in power. The war is still grinding, and markets are still trying to figure out how to price a conflict that has already lasted longer than World War II. Welcome back to Market Lens. I'm Daniel Reed. Today we are going to answer the question most investors are getting wrong. What is Putin's actual strategy now, after 4 years of war, and which stocks benefit no matter how this ends? The mainstream narrative has swung between two poles. Either Russia is about to collapse, or Putin is about to conquer all of Ukraine. Both are wrong. The reality is more nuanced and more investable. Here is what we know from intelligence reports, ISW assessments, and the Kremlin's own actions. Putin's original war aims, regime change in Kyiv, the destruction of Ukrainian statehood, and a total restructuring of European security, have not changed. European intelligence agency heads told Reuters in February 2026 that Putin's strategic goals remain unchanged. He still wants to remove Zelensky, impose Ukrainian neutrality, and cripple Ukraine's military permanently. But his ability to achieve those goals has deteriorated dramatically. And that gap between what Putin wants and what he can actually accomplish is where the investment opportunity lives. Today we are going to answer the question most investors are getting wrong. What is Putin's actual strategy now, after 4 years of war? And which stocks benefit no matter how this ends? The mainstream narrative has swung between two poles. Either Russia is about to collapse, or Putin is about to conquer all of Ukraine. Both are wrong. The reality is more nuanced and more investable. Here is what we know from intelligence reports, ISW assessments, and the Kremlin's own actions. Putin's original war aims, regime change in Kyiv, the destruction of Ukrainian statehood, and a total restructuring of European security, have not changed. European intelligence agency heads told Reuters in February 2026 that Putin's strategic goals remain unchanged. He still wants to remove Zelensky, impose Ukrainian neutrality, and cripple Ukraine's military permanently. But his ability to achieve those goals has deteriorated dramatically. And that gap between what Putin wants and what he can actually accomplish is where the investment opportunity lives. Let's start with the battlefield. In the first 4 months of 2026, Russian forces advanced an average of just 2.9 square kilometers per day. That is down from 9.8 square kilometers per day in the same period of 2025, and down from 14.9 square kilometers per day in late 2024. In April 2026, Ukraine actually made net territorial gains, 116 square kilometers, for the first time since September 2023. Russia's spring-summer offensive, which began in mid-March, has failed to produce operationally significant advances. Ukrainian forces have recaptured territory in Kupiansk, liberated over 400 square kilometers in southern Ukraine, and retaken settlements in western Zaporizhia. The fortress belt of eastern Ukraine, Kostiantynivka, Pokrovsk, Chasiv Yar, remains in Ukrainian hands, and Russia's recruitment rate dipped below its replacement rate in January 2026 for the first time in the war. They are losing soldiers faster than they can replace them. Pillar 2. The economy. Russian oil and gas revenues dropped in 2025 to a 5-year low. Finance Minister Anton Siluanov acknowledged that the share of revenue from oil and gas sales will fall by roughly 30% in 2026. Ukraine's drone strikes on Russian refineries and oil terminals, Primorsk lost 40% of its storage capacity, Ust-Luga lost 30%, are systematically degrading Russia's export capacity. At current oil prices, Russia faces a 60% shortfall in oil revenues, roughly $67 billion, half of its official defense budget. The sovereign wealth fund is running dangerously low. Russia is selling gold reserves to cover the budget deficit, and the economy is overheating, factories borrowing at unsustainable rates to feed the front. Pillar 3. Western will. This one is the most ambiguous. U.S. support has shifted from direct aid to a European-funded model, but the EU just committed 90 billion euros to Ukraine. The EU loan is backed by the entire EU budget, and Europe is rearming at a pace not seen since the Cold War. Putin's theory is not dead, but it is on life support. So what does Putin do when his plan is failing? He does what he has always done, escalate the rhetoric while bargaining from supposed strength. In the last 30 days alone, Russia conducted unannounced strategic nuclear exercises involving 64,000 personnel, over 7,800 pieces of equipment, 200 missile launchers, 140 aircraft, and 13 submarines. This is the largest nuclear exercise since the Cold War. Putin claimed a successful test of the RS-28 Sarmat Super Heavy ICBM, the same missile that failed a test launch in November 2024. He is saber-rattling because his conventional options are narrowing. At the same time, Putin is simulating diplomacy. On May 9, Russia's Victory Day, he publicly said the war is heading to an end. The Kremlin immediately walked it back, saying there are no specifics. Putin asked Ukraine for a ceasefire so his parade would not be disrupted by drones. Ukraine agreed. Russia used the ceasefire to reposition reserves and then launched over 1,400 drones and 56 missiles in the following 48 hours. This is the pattern. Putin offers talks when his forces are stalling, uses the pause to reconstitute, then escalates again. European intelligence agencies have assessed that Putin is not interested in genuine compromise. He is playing for time, hoping the West tires first. But there is one new signal worth watching. Russian officials are reportedly preparing to frame a peace deal as a victory, even if it only holds currently occupied territory. The Kremlin is shifting its domestic narrative away from capturing all of Ukraine and toward consolidating what Russia already holds. What does that mean for investors? It means the most probable outcome is not a Russian victory or a Ukrainian victory. It is a frozen conflict, a Korea-style stalemate that grinds on for years, with periodic ceasefires, intermittent escalations, and no final resolution. And a frozen conflict environment has a very specific set of investment implications. If the most likely scenario is a protracted frozen conflict, then the investment playbook is not about betting on peace or war. It is about betting on structural changes that are already locked in, regardless of headlines. Let me give you 4 sectors and the specific stocks that matter. Sector 1. European defense, the structural rearmament trade. This is the most straightforward allocation. Germany's defense budget has gone from $88 billion in 2025 to $129 billion in 2026, a 45% increase in a single year. Germany plans to reach $180 billion by 2030. Poland is spending 4.7% of GDP on defense. NATO has committed to 5% of GDP targets. Rearm Europe totals 800 billion euros. The clearest beneficiary is Rheinmetall. They are the backbone of European land systems, ammunition, Lynx infantry fighting vehicles, Panther tanks, air defense systems. Rheinmetall's 2025 revenue grew 29% to 9.9 billion euros. Operating profit grew 33%. Backlog grew 36% to 63.7 billion euros. They are guiding for 40 to 45% revenue growth in 2026 and expect backlog to double to 135 billion euros. At 78 times trailing PE, the stock is priced for perfection, but the order book supports the narrative. Rheinmetall is not the only play. BAE Systems is up 23% year-to-date, a steadier compounder with nuclear submarine programs, Eurofighter, and AUKUS contracts. BAE trades at a more reasonable multiple and offers sterling-denominated exposure. For U.S. exposure, Lockheed Martin trades at 24.6 times PE, a discount to the sector average of 36.9. The company just secured a $1.2 billion PAC-3 missile production contract with surge capacity to 2,000 interceptors per year. The Missiles and Fire Control Division grew 18% in Q4 2025. And President Trump is targeting a $1.5 trillion defense budget by 2027. The ETF option: EUAD for European defense, ITA for U.S. defense, SHLD for global defense tech. Sector 2. Energy, the geopolitical premium trade. Russian oil revenues are in structural decline. Ukrainian drone strikes have knocked out significant refining and export capacity. The Caspian Pipeline Consortium has faced shutdowns. All of this embeds a permanent geopolitical risk premium of $5 to $15 per barrel in oil prices. The beneficiaries are Western oil majors: ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, Total Energies. Their refining margins surged 61% in Q3 2025 as Russian supply contracted. These companies are also investing in the energy transition, giving them a dual tailwind. For clean energy exposure, the war is accelerating Europe's pivot away from Russian energy dependence. Siemens Energy, Vestas Wind, and solar manufacturers benefit from the structural demand for energy independence. Sector 3. Ukrainian Reconstruction, The post-conflict premium trade. As Ukraine emerges from conflict, the reconstruction phase presents a unique opportunity for investors. The rebuilding of infrastructure, housing, and industry is not just a necessity, but a chance for economic revitalization. Investors who recognize the potential for growth in this sector can benefit from the post-conflict premium trade. With international support and a focus on sustainable development, Ukraine's reconstruction is poised to attract significant global interest. This is a pivotal moment for those looking to invest in a future of resilience and prosperity. This is the asymmetric opportunity. The World Bank estimates Ukraine's reconstruction needs at $524 billion over the next decade. The EU has committed 90 billion euros. The US-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund is operational with $150 million in seed capital. The European Flagship Fund targets 500 million euros. Companies positioned to benefit include Siemens Energy, gas turbines, grid equipment; Caterpillar, construction equipment; CRH, building materials; ABB, electrification and grid modernization; and Johnson Controls, building automation. There is now an ETF for this exact theme, UKRN on the London Stock Exchange. Top holdings include Siemens Energy at 4.6%, Caterpillar at 4.4%, and CRH at 4%. The timing caveat. Reconstruction is a 5 to 10 year play, not a 6-month trade. Entry prices matter. Patience is mandatory. Sector 4. Agricultural commodities. The supply shock trade. The recent droughts have severely impacted crop yields, leading to a significant supply shock in the market. Prices are skyrocketing, and traders are scrambling to adjust their positions. How will this affect global food security, and what measures can be taken to mitigate these effects? As we delve deeper into this issue, it's crucial to understand the broader implications for both producers and consumers worldwide. Let's explore the potential strategies that could help stabilize the market and ensure a steady supply of essential commodities. Russia and Ukraine together account for roughly 30% of global wheat exports and significant sunflower oil and corn supply. The war has disrupted planting, export routes, and fertilizer supply chains. This supports structurally higher prices for agricultural commodities and benefits major agribusiness names like Archer Daniels Midland, Bunge, and CF Industries. Now let me stress test this framework with 2 scenarios that would change the investment calculus. Scenario A, a real ceasefire. Can you believe it? After all these years, they've finally agreed to a ceasefire. It's been such a long road, and I honestly didn't think we'd see this day. Maybe now we can start to rebuild and heal. If genuine peace negotiations produce a verifiable ceasefire, not a simulated one, the defense trade would correct 10 to 15% overnight. Rheinmetall fell 5.9% on a single ceasefire headline in April. That creates a buying opportunity for anyone with a 12-month horizon, because structural rearmament does not reverse on a ceasefire, but it would temporarily pressure defense stocks. The winners in a ceasefire scenario. Ukrainian reconstruction plays would re-rate immediately. The UKRN ETF would likely see inflows. Polish banks, Ukrainian real estate, and Central European industrial names would benefit from the normalization premium. Kyiv real estate at 30 to 60% discounts to pre-war prices represents the highest asymmetric upside in European markets today. Scenario B, escalation. Russian mobilization or NATO involvement. If Putin moves to a full wartime economy and general mobilization, it would signal that he is doubling down rather than negotiating. This would be bullish for defense, energy, and commodities in the short term, and bearish for European equities broadly. Russian escalation also increases the probability of the Iran conflict widening, creating a multi-front energy crisis. My base case is neither. The most probable outcome, priced by Polymarket at roughly 74% probability, is no ceasefire in 2026. A grinding, frozen conflict with periodic escalations. And that base case favors the structural plays I outlined: European defense, Western energy majors, selective reconstruction positioning, and agricultural commodities. Let me summarize what this means for your portfolio. The war in Ukraine has entered its 5th year. Putin's theory of victory has failed on the battlefield, is cracking economically, and surviving politically only through intensified repression and nuclear posturing. The most likely outcome is a frozen conflict. Not peace, not Russian victory, not Ukrainian victory. In a frozen conflict, the investment playbook is 1. Overweight European defense. Rheinmetall for growth, BAE for stability, Lockheed for value. Use ceasefire-driven sell-offs as entry points, not exit signals. 2. Hold Western energy majors. The geopolitical risk premium in oil is structural, not cyclical. 3. Build a small position in Ukrainian reconstruction. The UKRN ETF provides diversified exposure. This is a 5-10-year bet, but the asymmetry favors the patient. 4. Avoid Russian-exposed assets entirely. Sanctions are not lifting. The Russian economy is in structural decline. 5. Use gold as portfolio insurance. Every escalation event reinforces the case for a non-sovereign store of value. The narrative will swing between hope and fear with every diplomatic headline. The data says the structural trends are moving in one direction. Invest accordingly. I'm Genuine Reed. Thanks for watching Market Lens.